Hi, this is Annie Hyman Pratt. I'm the creator of the A Plus Leader Development Program and Mastermind. And in today's show, I will reveal to you how you can build your A Plus event team.
Hi, Rudy Rodriguez here. Welcome to today's episode of the High Profit Event Show. Today we have a very special guest on with us, Miss Annie Hyman Pratt. Welcome, ma'am.
Great to be here.
Awesome. Glad to have you, Annie. And, we go back a few years. It's been a pleasure working with you and your organization at A Plus Leadership and the Mastermind Program. And for our audience who haven't met you yet, I wanted to mention a couple bullets about your background. So if they're curious and they start to lean in when we interview. One, I know, Annie, that you have a background as a business consultant and a mentorship trainer of many leaders working with some very large companies and brands, including Hay House. But you also had your start in the family business, a small little business known as Coffee Bean and Tea Leaves that you and your family grew in the 90s until you sold it. And since then, you've worked with many different businesses, and you found that the common pain point has typically been around people. And you built a whole training organization around developing the people part of a business. And you do have a unique combination of experiences with finance, operation, executive leadership, and psychology and performance that just had given you like a very unique perspective when it comes to the people part of a business. And you also have been doing your own virtual events, well, in-person event for many years, and you've coached many high-level companies and brands with their organizations in developing their teams, including their event teams, so that they could have excellent events. So welcome, and excited to interview you today.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, so maybe we could start, Annie, with telling maybe a little bit about your story. People always love to know a little bit about your background and kind of what brought you into the event space. And we can just start there.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, so I grew up kind of in a family business. My parents started the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf in the 60s. And when they started, it was really all about selling pounds of coffee, just beans to take home and make. That lasted all through the 60s, the 70s, most of the 80s. At the end of the 80s, there was what I think of as the coffee beverage revolution, meaning people really got interested in having all the fancy Italian espresso drinks. And our company, the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, we were the first ones to really invent the cold blender drinks, right? The ice blended mocha was our discovery, and we grew huge all during the 90s. My dad had to retire right after I got out of college, and I worked in accounting for a little while. My dad had to retire, and so then I came into the business earlier than I probably would have, and operated the business as the CEO all during the 90s. At the end of the 90s, part of the expansion, I took the business from 7 stores to 70 stores, and part of the expansion was doing some overseas licensing. And our Southeast Asian licensee turned around and bought us at the end of the 90s. So that was very unexpected for me. I really wasn't sure what I was going to do next. And so I did a lot of interim executive work because I wanted to see what other kinds of businesses were out there. I wanted to work with businesses in really all different kinds of fields. And that experience was great. I thought I would do it for like a year or two, and I ended up doing it for more than a decade, being an interim executive. And what I found was that businesses could be very different for their strategy, for their how the operations really work, for marketing, finance, all of it could be pretty different. But at the end of the day, the people part was uniquely the same, meaning that when you had strong, good people who could really think about the business, who were able to stay in a good place themselves, do good teamwork, the businesses thrived. And a business that had a great product but not great people they really struggled. So it became clear to me that the people part was just more and more important. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Thanks for sharing that background and how you grew the family business from 70 to 70 stores and then sold and then went to work, doing executive work for different businesses, and you saw the common pattern, uniquely different, that the
Yeah.
people part.
Yes. Yes. And it became such an important part for me that I used to do a lot of consulting that was really around strategy and operations. And I pivoted to doing much more around leadership development and team and organizational infrastructure. So not infrastructure like computers, but infrastructure like, how do you do a strategic plan? How do you do measurement and metrics, right? How do you do team meetings? These were all things that business owners, especially entrepreneurs, don't know going in. And I also found too, entrepreneurs I worked more and more with smaller and smaller entrepreneurs, meaning smaller and smaller businesses, not smaller people, but smaller businesses. And for entrepreneurs, they get into business because they have a dream, right? They want to impact the world. They want to have a lifestyle that is not just a grind. They want to make good money. They want to be in charge of their own future. Okay, so all of that's awesome. The thing that entrepreneurs don't want, but inevitably, if they want to have a business that grows, they have to have, is no entrepreneur goes into business thinking, I'd like to have a giant team. I'd like to have a lot of people problems. Nobody goes for that. So the point of having people is so that they make your business better, stronger, that you can grow it more, that you get more free time. And that is something that humans are still the best to provide. Human beings, as far as AI has come, it hasn't come far enough. Human beings are still the best, beings we have, the best workers we have to take in all different kinds of perspectives and information and make sense of it. So the example I like to give is that we've been working on, Tesla's been working on a self-driving car for a long time now, and they still don't have one. It's still, they still don't have one that could just ride on the road. In fact, a few weeks ago, one of their self-driving cars ran into an airplane. So it's still, and yet we can teach any 16-year-old how to drive. So human beings still have this ability to think when there's so many different factors going on at once. A computer can play chess better than a human can, but a computer still can't, drive as well as a human can. And there's so much of that about business. And I think especially for the people listening to this show that are big in the event space, it's like, oh my gosh, talk about something that's people-centered. Everything's people-centered, right? It's like, people are going to do all the marketing. People are going to get the event filled. People are going to plan the event. People are going to deliver the event. The customers are people. It's like, it's all about the people. And that is both a struggle and an opportunity. And I think that my career has really developed into taking the opportunity, getting much less struggle, much more opportunity because of having people.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. It all comes down to people.
Yes.
Yeah.
It does.
So I'm curious, our theme for today's episode is around how to build an A+ event team, right? And when you think of an event, even if it's virtual or in person, like there's the leader can't do it all themselves. At the least, they have someone that's managing a Zoom room for them, but there's oftentimes so much more going on. You said the marketing, the promotion, the people attending, there's administrative work that needs to happen behind the scenes. There's a team that goes on behind the scenes of anybody who's an event leader. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit, like how to build that A+
Yes.
event team if someone doesn't already have that in place or wants to aspire to that?
Yeah, totally. So the very first thing to think about when you are going to stop doing everything yourself and start having people come help you is what kind of area, what kinds of tasks, but especially kind of grouped into an area, can I put together to have somebody else take responsibility for? So it's like for an event, you probably are going to have one person who leads the planning. And by leading the planning, and maybe even they lead the whole execution, the physical execution of the event, if you're doing an in-person event, they're going to plan ahead of time the menus, the room size, they'll negotiate the contract for the hotel, et cetera. They may be the main person to be working with the hotel. Okay, great. So if you have somebody who can do that part of the event, that's awesome. That's probably not going to be the same person who is going to build all the landing pages or the digital advertisements or whatnot. So it's like you want to first start thinking of the event as its own kind of mini business with functions. And each of those functions has roles in it, but each of those functions needs to have a leader. And they don't have to be, when I think of a leader, it doesn't mean that they have to have a bunch of team members under them. It's what the definition that I hold for a leader is that a leader is responsible to work with themselves and others to achieve results. Right? So an event planner has the responsibility of achieving a great result for their part of the event. And so the very beginning thing of thinking about building your A+ event team is, what kinds of roles do I have? Like, what are the role categories? Probably things like planning, like marketing, like technology, like filling, a sales team. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of parts, and you want to be thinking of it not as one big jumble, but how can I organize these so that I can find people to take a part of it and really be able to hold that and deliver the result. Because otherwise, let's say you don't do it that way and you end up keeping kind of all the decision making for yourself, you end up wanting to, how would I say it, be the one to delegate all the tasks to your team. The issue with that is that you won't, how would I say it? You will get buried in having to do all the follow-up, all the tasking, all the figuring out if there's a problem, right? And it's just too much. We need people who can take a real responsibility, not just do some tasks that you tell them to.
Yeah, this is really good, Annie. I remember being in classroom with you one time, and you drew out this kind of functional kind of diagram and breaking up, a business into all these different sections and having these kind of where they meet, but also where they have leads. And then that memory always ingrained in me. And like you say, you got to think of the event in that context. Like, hey, what are the different parts of the events, and breaking it into functions and having each function have a leader, which is someone, they may not have a whole team below them, but they're responsible for the function, like the planning, the marketing, the technology.
Yes. It can be one part-time contractor. It's not a problem. You may have one part-time contractor who's responsible for the technology. Great. But we need that part-time contractor to be able to show up to the morning meeting with all of the leaders on the event day, for example, because it's your leaders that are going to cross-function during an event.
Yeah, can you speak to that a little bit more? Because I think that's an important point, is like how to get your leaders, once you've identified your leaders and you have them on your team, and how do you get them to cross-function at the event?
Yes, exactly. So instead of you being like the hub of a wheel and everybody comes off the central entrepreneur, instead you want more of like a pyramid where people can work directly across functions, so that if I'm having an issue with the door opening time of the event or whatnot, and because the technology is not ready, it's like I want to be able to talk to the technology people. Like you want to have that kind of cross functioning so that you don't have a whatchamacallit, like a triangle, a game of telephone going all the time. And the two people, two or three or however many are involved, that are closest to the issue happening, those are the ones that need to solve it. And so we want that kind of cross functioning going. And the way to have that going regularly, so that in cases where you have an unexpected issue, it happens naturally. But the way to get that going regularly is to meet regularly with your team, right? With your cross-functional leadership team. So all those leaders start to get to know, what's my part, what's your part. It's kind of like, most small businesses, I kind of think of like a basketball team, right? Like there's 5 people out there, which kind of signify the leaders. They each have different roles. There's a game strategy, there's an outcome that they're going for. And even though they have roles and they know the outcome that they're going for, things happen on the court. It's not like they're playing all by themselves. Like there's an opponent on the court. And so unexpected things happen all the time, and they need to regroup and they need to replan and talk about what we should all do together.
Yeah, I like that. I was recently working at an in-person event with one of our partners, and it was a fairly large event. We had over 300 people in attendance, and we had obviously many speakers, A-list speakers. We had MC, we had an audio team, we had a sales team, which we're looking over. We had a registration team, we had a finance accounting team, we had, we had all of these different people. And obviously we had our actual host who, was leading the event. And one of the things that worked well is that we had regular meetings leading up to the event with the key leaders, and making sure that we had checklists and we're clarifying and verifying what was needed. Even during the event itself, we had a full walkthrough, prior with the functional leaders. And each day, even each morning, there was a set time where we would meet with the team. And it can seem like a little bit of redundancy at times, but I found that those regular meetings really create that rhythm of communication and success that allow for an event to go apparently seamlessly, but in fact, it's a lot of moving parts and a lot of leaders and a lot of teams moving in conjunction.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Oh wait, what did you just say? Oh, that there's many people, lots of moving parts, right? Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Sorry, I just totally lost my train of thought.
Yeah, one of my mentors once made a reference to an event is like a duck that's on the water, and it seems to be very still, just kind of, but underneath the water, you see little feet that are pedaling away.
Totally. Yeah, for sure. And preparation, the reason you want to prepare as much as you can is because then when something does go not according to plan, you will be a 10 times better problem solver. It's like if you don't plan, you don't have any sense of what changed, what's not working right here. It takes too long to diagnose a problem. If you don't plan, you too easily get thrown into chaos, more or less, chaos and crisis. And so by having planning, by having structure, by having people have, know exactly what to expect as the event is happening, then when something happens that's unexpected, they recognize it quickly. They're able to figure out what the heck to do differently and do it. Yeah, super important to prepare. And I think that for new people, kind of newly into events, to not beat themselves up for maybe planning things a bit late, because that's normal too. But for each time you do an event, to get a little bit better. It's like the entrepreneurs, the most successful entrepreneurs, they get the planning cycle to be a little lengthened each time. Because the more you plan into the future, and I don't mean years into the future, but I mean, when I work with entrepreneurs, usually, they're planning an event that would happen next week. And then the next one, they're planning it a month ahead. And then the one after that, 3 months ahead. Right. And then suddenly, they have next year's event dates already. And that's where you want to get to. Because then you can spend your critical thinking time, your real strategizing on the content, on how to do the marketing, not on the parts that really matter, instead of at the last minute trying to figure out where the food is coming from.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed some of the people that I worked with, the ones that tend to have the best results are the ones who are most proactive with their dates and planning, and have their event planned out 6-12 months in advance, and already on the dates are on the calendar, goals are set, and we're thinking long-term strategically towards that. Those are always the best and most enjoyable, because when we show up, we've already planned for it so thoroughly that it's the heavy lifting's been done.
Exactly. And nothing will go without a hitch. Like, things change. I mean, it is more like a basketball game. Businesses and events happen in the real world, the unpredictable real world. There's things that change all the time. And so we do need to be able to change. But the more we have structured and planned, the easier that is to do. Because chaos just shuts down your thinking altogether. Then you don't even have teamwork anymore.
Yeah, that reminds me of a bumper sticker tagline I learned from Keith Cunningham. It says, "Business opportunity without structure is chaos."
Yes, exactly. Yes. So we do want structure. I think that's actually something that is kind of interesting, because especially for the event world, because you do need structure, you do need systems and process, you need all of that. You need checklists, right? You need scripts, and you need all the ahead planning, etc. Okay, you do need all that, but all that by itself is not enough. It's like, we need all that so that we can rely on it, so that we can do our thinking and our performing on the things that matter. So, if somebody's going to get on stage and make an offer, at that moment, we need them to be concentrating and really focusing on the offer, on getting a good result from the offer, not having spent the first half of the day trying to figure out why part of the event's not running right. Right? We need those things in place, and people in place, so that we can spend our thinking on the things that really matter. It's not that we're going to not think. Systems and process, they are meant to take the thinking out or make it much easier. But at the end of the day, we do that so that we can actually have the best part of the human's mind, and that is for the thinking, the creativity, the innovation, the influence, all of that.
Yeah, I find that it does free up the mental space to think about the things that matter, the more creative things.
Absolutely.
It's counterintuitive.
Yes, it is. It's counterintuitive. And and I think sometimes people can go overboard with systems and process, meaning that they're, it's like they so want the stability of knowing that things are going to get done the right way. But you can't, because business keeps changing, because events and people and everything keeps changing, you can't ever nail that down completely. Like, you are going to need thinking people. You need to have a balance of both.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think is maybe interesting to talk about for event leaders is that you can have, we don't generally think of people's behavior as systematic or as, as something we can totally rely on unless they're following a process. But we don't generally think that we could have people all behave in the same way during a problem, like, encountering an unexpected problem. But we can. And I think of it as, like basically as a prescription, a way to do the teamwork that's predefined. So let me give an example. So let's say we're all working together. I'm part of this cross-functional team. I'm working on an event with my other team members. Okay, and I have in the back of my mind that I know that there's a high likelihood that we're going to have a problem with the hotel room when a few months ahead. Like, we think it's going to be okay, but we're not positive if it's going to be okay. And I'm starting to get a whiff of that. Maybe it's going worse than we all understand. Okay. So naturally, if you're Annie, you would not bring that forward to the team. You would be thinking, that's my issue. I'll figure out how to solve that on the side. I'll figure out how to just take care of it. Okay. But knowing that problem, if it did happen, and it impacts everybody. Okay. So that is the opposite behavior that we want. What we would want from Annie as a leader in that cross-functional team at that moment is to say, hey, here's what's going on. We may have a problem. I don't know. But if we do, here's some ideas for how I think we would solve it. Right? If we don't, great. Here's the other way we'll carry it through. And all of that, we don't want me hiding that kind of information. We don't want me, because if I don't share it early enough and it actually turns into a problem, then we don't have time to solve it. And we don't have the awareness. We don't know who else on the team might run into something that is a much easier solve for the whole issue. Make sense? So that's the kind of behavioral process that we want our teams to be able to know and do. It's like, when you work on this event team, you bring issues early. You bring them right away with potential solutions.
Yeah, I like that. I like that philosophy of, like, you come, if you see a problem, come with the solution.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Or even an idea for a solution. It's okay if you don't even have a full solution, but there's a big difference between, like, hey, this event may not work out at this hotel. If I tell that to my leader, to my boss, right? And then they're in a place of like, oh no, what the hell does that mean? Then they're going to ask me 10,000 questions. But if I come from a place of like, hey, we may have a problem with the hotel room. Let me tell you a little bit about it. And I think if we did, here's what I think we could do to solve it. Here's another option that we may want to look at a different hotel. It's like, we want to bring our leaders a basket of thinking, not just dump the problem in their lap. But we have to bring it. And that's one of the biggest issues in teamwork and leadership today, is that we have this idea that if I'm responsible, I will just solve it all myself. And that is the slowest way to solve things. It's the riskiest.
Trying to do it all yourself.
Yes. In isolation, not even exposing yourself to who else might have extra piece of information, who else might have some support for you.
Yeah. I needed to hear that right now because there's many things that I'm still holding on to. I do my best to delegate, build team, but the things I continue to hold on to, I'm like, no, I need to at least let it be known that I need some help.
Yes, yes,
Allow allow for a team to step up.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. And you help them by doing that. Because otherwise, by the time entrepreneurs say something that they need help, again, it's often just too late. And it's often going to make it just too stressful for the team, and a team, you know, the vast majority of teams can handle more information than you give them. And that will make them better thinkers. It'll make them
yeah,
better support for you.
yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Annie.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think there's been a really terrific interview, and how to build an A+ team for your event, and just understanding the people part, whether it's an event or not. Like you said, it's uniquely similar across the board. And Annie, if someone's listening to this call or to this interview or watching this interview, and they're an event leader and they're like, hey, I'm recognizing that I need to build my team or maybe train my team
Yeah.
to be more proactive and to plan further ahead, or to bring, solutions forward, or to learn how to cross-functionally communicate with other, leads, or how to create those leads, all of that. If somebody is a leader and they're like, I want an A+ event team, how can they embark on that journey? How can they learn more about you and your services, and how can you support them?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh gosh, thank you for that question. Yes. So our company name is Leading Edge Teams. And so first of all, you can find us at leadingedgeteams.com. And because we are, have recognized that this kind of leadership development is so scarce out there, and that smaller businesses cannot usually afford a high-powered consultant, we have a group program that's really great. It's called the A+ Leader Development Program and Mastermind. And in that program, we teach all about leadership, all about teamwork, all about how to do all of the infrastructure pieces of a small business, including an event team, right? Like how to do roles and responsibilities, how to set up your business so that you can keep stepping into the more creative and innovative parts of it, parts you really want to do, and how to develop others to do the rest. So that program is going into its 8th year. It's a fantastic program. We're really proud of it. And and you can find that at leadingedgeteams.com/APL as well. It's the A+ Leader Development Program and Mastermind. And it's a great group as well. Other
Yeah,
leaders that you have as a peer group.
yeah, and I've personally been a student of your work as well, and we've had members of our team multiple members of our team go through your programs, and all of them, both of them, I should say, because there's 2 of them, have just said wonderful things, and I've seen remarkable development in their leadership abilities and cross-functional abilities, and like the way they've been leading. So I definitely have seen a marked improvement within our own organization. So thank you for that resource. And for our listeners, if you're an event leader and you have a team or you want to build a team, I highly recommend checking out Annie's website and learning more about her leadership development program, or A+ Leader program. Is a really great program. And there's a lot of other awesome leaders in that program that it's a great community to network and connect with. So thank you, Annie, for that resource.
Yeah. And I wanted to mention, Rudy, it's been a joy to see you and your whole company grow. And, and that you have leaders now who can really take on good responsibilities so that you can do things like a podcast. It's a total delight. It's a total delight to see you guys all grow. And you have some fantastic leaders.
Yes, we do. Well, we thank you very much. Many props to our team and them. They are A+ players. So thank you, Annie.
Oh, yeah.
Any closing comments before we wrap up today's episode?
I think to just be compassionate for the human part of business. Like, you are working with humans. And if you can just kind of remember that humans are messy, but they're still the best way to go. They're still the salvation for entrepreneurs, event leaders, growing a business, getting, more of what they want, and a much greater impact in other people's lives. Because when you have support and when you have people who can take on responsibility, you can do so much more.
100% agree. Yeah, that's a great closing comment. Thank you, Annie. Appreciate that. And for our listeners, if you found value from today's episode, I highly recommend share this episode with someone who you think would find value from hearing today's message from Annie. And also, if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to this particular show. We release a new episode on a weekly basis. So again, thank you, Annie, for being on today. It's been a pleasure having you as our guest.
Thank you so much.